The morning sun cast long shadows over the Kepler 442c research station when the attack began. 7-year-old Maya Chen was feeding small lizard-like creatures in the biology lab when the first explosion shook the building. Her parents, Dr. James, Lisa Chen and Maya were studying plant samples in the main lab when they were attacked by pirates. Maya dropped her food container and ran to the window. A strange ship with red markings had landed near the station. People in black armor were jumping out, carrying large weapons. From somewhere in the building she heard her mother screaming her name. Maya! Maya! Where are you? The girl wanted to run to her parents, but the hallways were filled with smoke and terrifying noises. She could hear people screaming and running. Someone was crying. The stench of something burning filled the air. A loud noise came from the main lab. Maya was too scared to move and pressed herself against the wall. Through the smoke she could see an armored figure walking down the hallway. His face was covered by a metal mask, and he was carrying a weapon that emitted electric buzzing sounds. "Search every room," the figure said in a gruff voice. "The company wants all the research data. Anyone who survives will be sent to the slave markets." Maya's heart pounded painfully hard. She knew about the slave markets from scary stories told to her by older children. She had to hide. She had to run. The biology lab had a back door that led to the forest. Maya had explored the forest many times before, thanks to her parents always being close to the lab. But now the forest seemed like the only safe place. She ducked quietly under the lab table. The back door was just a few steps away. She heard the sound of an armored man approaching, his heavy boots clattering loudly against the metal floor. Maya reached the door and pushed it open as quietly as possible. The forest air felt cold. She glanced back once to see if she could see her parents, but all she could hear was smoke and the screams of people. She ran into the trees. The forest was different from what she remembered. The trees seemed bigger and darker. Strange sounds could be heard all around: clicking, a faint whistling, the rustling of leaves. Maya had never been in the forest alone before, and she was scared. She ran until her legs hurt and she was short of breath. She stopped, still hearing explosions coming from the direction of the station. But now in the distance, she sat down next to a large tree with purple bark and began to cry. Maya was unaware that she was being watched. In the trees above, several creatures were watching a small human child. They had never seen a human up close before, only heard tales of tall, dangerous creatures that sometimes came to their world. But these creatures were small and clearly troubled. They resembled large foxes, but with 6 legs instead of 4, and fur that seemed to be made of tiny color-shifting crystals. Now their fur was deep blue and purple, the colors of anxiety and fear. The largest of the creatures, an elder named Shimmer of the Dawn, watched as Maya cried. Shimmer of the Dawn was old enough to remember when the first humans came to this world. Stories portrayed humans as violent, taking whatever they wanted, but this little one looked helpless and scared. "She's only a child," whispered the young adult creature named Bright Tail. "She's so small." "Humans are dangerous," said a third voice. "Legend has it, they destroy everything they touch." Dawn Shimmer's crystal-like fur turned silver, the color of deep thought. "But she is a child. All children, no matter what species, deserve protection." The explosions from the station grew louder and louder. Smoke rose into the sky. Maya looked up and saw the dark clouds and cried even harder. "It wasn't her people making that noise," Brighttail said gently. "It was the bad guys. The attackers we'd heard about." Dawn's Shimmer made a decision that would change everything. She climbed down from the tree, walking gracefully on 6 legs across the purple bark. The other creatures followed her, ready to flee if the human child posed any danger. Maya heard a soft sound like crystal wind chimes and looked up. Standing before her was the most beautiful creature she had ever seen. It was the size of a large dog, with fur that shone like jewels and kind eyes that radiated a soft light. "Hello, little one," the sparkle of dawn said in its own language. It sounded like a song. Maya couldn't understand the words, but the voice was gentle and caring. She stopped crying and stared at the amazing creature. More fox-like creatures appeared from behind the trees and bushes. Maya counted 6 of them, some smaller than her, likely pups. Their crystal-like fur now showed a variety of colors, soft greens and warm yellows. For some reason, Mia felt a sense of security. Brighttail stepped forward. He was a young Shimmer of Dawn child, but much larger than Maya. His fur was a vibrant gold, streaked with silver. He made a soft musical noise and held out a paw. Mia didn't know what to do. Her parents had taught her to be careful of wild animals. But these creatures didn't seem wild. They seemed intelligent and had no intention of harming me. Mia reached out and touched Brighttail's paw. His fur was warm and prickly, like touching a fluffy electric light bulb. Brighttail's colors have changed, bright pink and orange. Bright colors. Mia realized vaguely. Bad guys are coming, Dawn Shimmer told her companions in a musical voice. They must take her to their hideout in the deep forest. Veli as they called themselves, but their forest home contained many secret places. They knew every tree, every stream, every cave. They had lived here for millennia, long before humans arrived on their world. Dawn Sparkle gently picked Maya up in her mouth, like a mother cat cradling her kitten. Mia flinched for a moment, but Elia's mouth was warm, and she was careful not to hurt the girl. The Velizi group moved through the forest like flowing water. They knew the invisible path, a path overgrown with brush and fallen trees that the pirates could never have followed. Carried away by the sparkle of dawn, Maya felt as if she were flying. They stopped in a place where several large trees were clustered together. The roots created a natural hiding place. The Velizi had used this place as a hideout for ages, woven branches together to form walls and soft moss for bedding. The sparkle of dawn gently lowered Maya onto her bed of silvery moss. The girl looked around curiously. The shelter was like something out of a fairy tale, its walls made of living trees, its ceiling covered in leaves, and just enough light to let in water, Brightor said. Maya understood what he meant. He brought a large leaf filled with clear water from a nearby stream. Maya gratefully drank. All the running and crying had made her very thirsty. The youngest child, barely older than Maya, approached gingerly. She had pale blue fur speckled with white, and her eyes were large and curious. She inquired softly, and tilted her head. "It's a sweet song," Brighttail said, but Mia didn't understand the lyrics. He was trying to learn the human language from Maya's voice. "She wants to know if you're hurt." Maya shook her head and tried to smile. The young Varoshi, his fur a joyous glowing yellow, settled next to Maya like a living pillow. For the next few hours, the other Varoshi took turns keeping watch for danger while others gathered food for their unexpected guest. They brought Maya sweet fruits and nuts, carefully checking each one to make sure it was safe for humans to eat. Brighttail remembered seeing human scientists eating similar food. As the days passed, Maya began to feel more and more at ease. The Varoshi were kind and gentle, and seemed to understand that she was lost and scared. As she began to cry again, thinking of her parents, Gentle Song gently stroked the tip of her nose with his soft, warm nose. That night, the pirates took turns keeping watch while Ma slept, curled up between Gentle Song and another young Varoshi. Their crystal-like fur provided warmth, and their soft breathing made Ma feel less alone. But the pirates refused to give up. For the next few days, search parties combed the forest for survivors of the research station. They could be heard pushing through the forest, shouting at each other, and using loud machines to search for signs of life. The Shiashi were pacifists by nature. They had never waged war or harmed another living thing, but they were not powerless. They knew the forest better than anyone, and they had abilities the pirates had never anticipated. If a search party gets too close to their hiding place, the Varoshi become nearly invisible thanks to their natural camouflage. Their crystal-like fur blends perfectly with the colors of their surroundings, and they can even communicate with the forest animals, causing birds to sing in the opposite direction, and small mammals to cross the pirates' path, confusing their scanners. Brighttail was particularly adept at leading explorers away from Maya, appearing only long enough to attract their attention, and then disappearing into the brush or climbing trees too thin for humans to reach. The pirates never got a good look at him, but they wasted hours chasing his shadow. "What kind of animals live on this planet?" one frustrated pirate asked the other, stumbling through the forest for the third day. "According to the files, there's nothing dangerous," his partner replied. "Just a few fox-like creatures, probably just scared animals running around." The pirates were unaware that the most intelligent beings on Earth were deliberately sending them into circles. Maya was trying to communicate with her guardians. Though she couldn't speak their musical language, she was beginning to understand some simple phrases. Brighttail was also learning the human language, especially the word thank you, which Maya said many times each day. The baby birds taught Maya their names, pointing to them and singing. Sparkle of Dawn sang like morning light dancing on the water. Brighttail sang like the wind rustling golden leaves. Gentle sang a sweet, gentle melody like a lullaby. Maya tried to sing her own name as they did, but her human voice lacked the crystalline quality. Verisi composed a song with a special name for her. It sounded like a bright little spirit, and Maya felt happy and accepted. After 2 weeks, the pirates began to grow angry and desperate. They had found no survivors and very little of value in the research station. The leader decided to send a message to anyone who might still be hiding. The search party began to light fires. Maya and the others smelled the smoke long before they saw the flames. Shimmer of the Dawn realized what was happening, her fur turning red with fear. "The forest is burning," she told her companions in a musical voice. They must move to a stone cave near the great waterfall. The stone cave is far from their current hiding place, and traveling is dangerous with the search party still in the forest. However, the fire is spreading quickly, and their hiding place will soon become unsafe. They gather what they can carry and prepare to move. Maya could see their concern from the dark color of their fur. She wanted to do something to help, but she was only a small human child in a world that was too big and dangerous. The journey to the cave lasted all night. The Verisi proceeded carefully, avoiding search parties and the spreading fires. Several times they had to hide in the bushes while pirates passed nearby. Maya tried to stay quiet, knowing that any noise could put everyone in danger. When they finally reached the stone cave, Maya was exhausted and scared. The cave was dark and cold, not as warm and cozy as the tree shelter, but it was safe from the fire. The dawn sparkle promised that they would only need to stay there for a little while. On her 3rd day in the cave, disaster struck. A group of fleeing pirates accidentally started a fire and wandered into the cave. They were lost, angry, and armed. Maya was asleep when she was awakened by Brighttail's urgent song. The adult Veloci moved quickly to hide any evidence that anyone had lived in the cave, but they ran out of time. The pirates entered the center of the cave just as Dawn Shimmer tried to hide Maya behind a rock. One of the armored figures noticed movement and raised his weapon. "There's something there," he yelled to his companions. "Perhaps an animal, but let's take a look." Dawn Shimmer made a decision that showed the true courage of her people. Instead of running or hiding, she stood head-on between Maya and the armed pirate. Her crystal fur gleamed silver and gold, colors of protection and steely determination. The pirates were surprised by the sudden appearance of a huge shiny creature. They had never seen anything like it before. "What is that?" muttered one of them, raising his weapon. It seemed to be a local animal. The other replied, "Let's fire and move on." But before they could fire, Brighttail and another adult appeared and formed a protective circle around Dawn Shimmer and Maya. Their fur glowed a deep red and bright orange warning colors, making it vaguely clear that they would fight to protect a small human child. The pirates hesitated. These creatures were clearly intelligent, and they were clearly guarding something important. The lead pirate stepped forward to see what they were guarding. It was then that Maya made a brave choice. She emerged from behind the dawn sparkle and stared at the armored figures. "Please don't hurt them," she said in a small, clear voice. "They helped me. They're good." The pirates stared in shock. They've been searching for survivors for weeks, and now a human child is being protected by alien animals. "Yes," said the leader, lowering his weapon slightly. "It seems you have found something valuable. A slaver would pay a fortune for a human child, especially one this young. But those pirates made a mistake. They underestimated Verisi's intelligence and determination." As the lead pirate approached Maya, Shimmer of the Dawn did something that went against every instinct of a peaceful people. She attacked. The elder was no warrior, but she desperately wanted to protect the child who had become like family. She leaped at the pirate, her crystal fur flaming like fire, and her 6 legs gave her speed and agility that no armored human could match. The pirate fell backward, his weapon blown from his hand, and a flash of dawn fell on him, pinning him down with its weight. Her fur was now a blazing white, a color used only in extreme circumstances. The other pirates raised their weapons, but Brighttail and the others were already on the move. The young Verisi used his speed to confuse the armored warriors, slipping between their legs and sending them stumbling. The other adults caused chaos, knocking their equipment over and letting out loud warning cries that echoed throughout the cavern. Maya took advantage of the confusion to follow the passage Verisi had led her down, running deeper into the cavern. She knew the pirates were pursuing her, but she also knew that Shimmer of the Dawn and her companions were close behind, protecting her even if it meant putting themselves in great danger. The chase through the dark cavern seemed to go on forever. Maya's small size allowed her to slip through the narrow passages, holding off the larger pirates. Behind her she heard the voices of others fighting not with violence, but with wisdom and courage. They were fighting to protect Maya and themselves using their knowledge of the cave. Finally, Maya reached a passage narrow enough for only herself to fit through. She crawled through the narrow space and entered a small chamber lit by rows of sparkling crystals. It was beautiful and peaceful, and for the first time in hours she felt safe. A few minutes later, Brighttail slid down the aisle behind her, his golden fur clouded with fatigue, but his eyes shining with relief. "You're safe now, bright little soul," he said in halting human speech. "The bad guys can't follow." One by one the other Verisi appeared in the crystal chamber. They were exhausted and scared, but alive. Mia wanted to hug each of them, to show her gratitude for their protection. But when the dawn spark finally crawled out the hallway, Maya could see that the elder was badly injured. Sections of her beautiful crystal fur scorched, and she moved slowly and deliberately. "I hurt you," Maya whispered, gently touching the shimmer of Dawn's wounded side. Old Verisi's fur turned soft pink and gold, the colors of love and family. She nuzzled Maya affectionately and sang a soft song that needed no translation. She had said that protecting Maya was worth the cost. That night in the safety of the crystal chamber, as the Verisi and the others tended to the wounded elder, Maya sat nearby, listening to Brighttail's soft song, her voice soft and tender. Now she understood that these incredible beings had sacrificed everything to keep her safe. She realized she was no longer just a lost human child. She was part of Verisi's family, and they were part of hers. Outside the cave, the pirates finally gave up their search and returned to their ship. The fires died down, leaving a scar in the forest that would heal with time. The research station was destroyed, but the most precious thing of all, one small life, was saved by the courage and kindness of those who asked for nothing in return. That night, Maya fell asleep in the arms of her alien guardians, unaware that their kindness would soon change the entire galaxy. All she knew was that she was safe, surrounded by friends who would protect her no matter what danger came her way. The crystals in her room glowed softly against the night sky, and they took turns keeping watch. Their fur radiated the soft colors of peace and family love. 7-year-old Maya Chen was far from home. She rested peacefully under the protection of the bravest being she had ever known. 3 months after the pirate attack, the UES ship Decision exited hyperspace near Kepler 4. Captain Sarah Rodriguez stood on the bridge, gazing out at a planet that had been silent for so long. The research station's emergency beacon had been emitting signals for weeks before the colonial fleet responded to its distress call. "Any signs of life out there?" Captain Rodriguez asked the science officer. "The station, it may be destroyed, Captain," Lieutenant Chen replied, checking his gauges. "But we're detecting anomalous energy in the forested area. There may be survivors." Captain Rodriguez nodded grimly. Pirate attacks on remote research facilities were becoming more and more frequent, and survivors were rare. The Crimson Fleet was known for selling prisoners on the slave market. Still, she needed to be sure. "Prepare a landing party," she ordered, complete with medical teams and guards. If anyone survived 3 months in the wilderness, they would need help. The expedition's xenopsychologist, Dr. Elena Vasquez, joined the landing party at the last minute. She had studied all the known species in the sector, but the energy readings coming from the planet were completely different from those in her files. "Captain, that energy signature," she said as she boarded the shuttle, "is not the result of human technology. Perhaps there is intelligent life out there." "Hostile?" Captain Rodriguez asked. "We don't know." The pattern was very complex, almost like a communication signal. The shuttle landed near the burnt remains of a research station. The landing party scattered, searching for signs of life among the twisted metal and ash. The forest beyond looked dark and ominous, with strange purple trees and unfamiliar sounds. Sergeant Martinez called out from the edge of the woods. "There's movement in the trees." The team moved cautiously into the woods, weapons ready but not aimed. As they approached the trees, they stopped in their tracks, startled by something. It was human singing. "It sounded like a child singing, Doctor," Vasquez whispered. From deep in the forest came singing, mingling with other sounds that were clearly not human, a tone like that of a crystal wind chime, playing a beautiful yet impossible harmony with the human voices. "Maya," Captain Rodriguez called, checking the list of station personnel. "Maya Chen, can you hear me?" The singing stopped. There was a long silence, then a rustling sound coming from the bushes ahead. The entire landing party was startled as something emerged from the forest. A small human girl, about 7 or 8 years old, stepped into the clearing. Her clothes were torn and patched together with what seemed to be woven grass, but she looked healthy and fearless. Tiny crystals adorned her hair, reflecting the sunlight. But she was not alone. Behind her were 6 of the most beautiful creatures any mortal had ever seen. They resembled great, 6-legged foxes, but their fur seemed to be made of living crystals, changing color with every movement. The largest specimen, clearly an adult, was silver and gold, its fur decorated with intricate patterns. A young animal with bright golden fur nestled beside the girl. "Hello?" the girl said in a voice that sounded human, yet somehow musical. "Are you here to help me? These are my friends. They're helping me." Captain Rodriguez slowly holstered his weapon and knelt down to the girl's eye level. "I'm Captain Rodriguez of the Colonial Fleet. Are you Maya Chen?" "Yes," Maya answered. "This is Vel. He protected me when the bad guys came." She pointed to the crystal-furred creatures behind her. "This is Shimmer of Dawn," she said, pointing to the largest one. "This is Brighttail. He's learning to speak human." As if realizing its name, the golden-furred creature stepped forward and made a noise that was clearly an attempt to speak human. "Damn," Brighttail said slowly, his voice bearing the same musical tone as Maya's. "Maya, you're safe. We'll protect you." Dr. Vasquez felt his heart pound. This was their first contact with intelligent aliens, and it had only happened because they were protecting a human child. "Maya, where are your parents?" Captain Rodriguez asked gently. Maya's face clouded. "I don't know. Pirates took them all. I fled into the forest, and Verasi found me. They've been looking out for me ever since." Sensing Maya's sadness, Shimmer of the Dawn approached and gently nuzzled the girl. Her crystal-like fur turned soft blues and greens, and she exuded something comforting and loving. "How long were you with them?" the doctor asked. Vasquez asked, his scientific mind racing with questions. "About 3 months, I think," Mir answered. "They taught me their language, and I taught them some human words. They're very intelligent. They know all about the forest and the animals. They saved me from a fire." Sergeant Martinez asked, looking around at the burned remains of nearby trees. "The pirates couldn't find me, so they set the forest on fire," Maya explained. "Dawn Shimmer was injured protecting me from the flame." She gently touched Veras's larger side, where a slightly different color of fur grew, clearly showing the scar. Captain Rodriguez felt a chill run down his spine. These aliens risked their lives to protect a human child they didn't even know. "Maya," she said carefully, "we need to get you somewhere safe, somewhere with other humans." Mia turned anxiously and spoke in their musical language. What followed was like nothing the humans had ever heard before. Maya's voice had acquired a crystal-all-like timbre, blending with the aliens' natural speech. It was clear she wasn't just communicating with them. She was part of their family. Brighttail responded with a long, complex song that seemed to express a range of emotion. The others joined in, harmonizing, bringing tears to Dr. Vasquez's eyes. "What are you talking about?" Captain Rodriguez asked. "They want to make sure I'm safe," Maya answered. "They don't want to lose me, but they understand I need to be with my people." Brighttail said he'd miss teaching me the songs of the forest. The smallest Verati, a little bigger than Maya, came over and rubbed against the girl's leg. Its fur was pale blue with white flecks, and its large eyes were clearly sad. "Gentle song," Maya said, picking up the young alien and cuddling her. "She's like a little sister to me now." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward slowly, careful not to frighten the aliens. "Maya, can you tell them I meant them no harm and that I appreciate what they've done?" Maya translated, and a reply came back immediately. Their fur glowed warm golds and pinks, and they began to play soft melodies that were clearly welcoming. "They say my friends are their friends too," Maya reported. "The Dawn Shimmer wants to know if you intend to harm the forest." "Tell them we only want to help," Captain Rodriguez said. "We want to understand them and learn from them." While Maya translated, Dr. Vasquez set up the recording equipment. This was the most important first contact in human history, and every word had to be recorded. "Maya, can you tell me about their society and culture?" Dr. Vasquez asked. What followed was one of the most remarkable interviews Dr. Vasquez had ever conducted. Through Maya, Belli revealed the existence of a complex and ancient civilization. They had inhabited the world for millennia, developing a sophisticated philosophy and social structure without developing advanced technology. They lived in family groups called pods and were led by elders such as the Shimmer of the Dawn. They had an oral history going back 50 generations, complex rituals celebrating the seasons, and an intricate understanding of the planet's ecosystem. Maya explained that they did not build cities or machines. They say there's no need to change the world because it's already perfect. You just have to understand how to live in harmony with it. Ask them why they saved you, Dr. Vasquez said, but she suspected she knew the answer. Maya sang the question in Veraz. The Dawn Shimmer's reply was long and beautiful, full of complex melodies and seemed to express deep emotion. She said that all young people, no matter what race they belong to, must be protected. Maya translated. They sensed my bright spirit song and knew I was good. She said that protecting children is the most important duty of any sentient being. Captain Rodriguez felt a lump in his throat. These creatures risked everything for a human child, driven purely by moral conviction. They want to know, Maya continued. They want to know if all humans are like the pirates who harmed the forest. Tell them they're not, Captain Rodriguez said firmly. Tell them pirates are criminal, that most humans, like pirates, try to be good. A musical chorus of relief returned. Their fur turned a bright, happy color. Maya, we need to get you to the ship, Dr. Vasquez said gently. You need medical attention. There are people very concerned about you. Maya looked confused. She clearly wanted to join the humans, but the thought of leaving pained her. Brighttail seemed to understand her conflict. He came over and began to sing a complex song, sad but beautiful. When he finished, Maya was crying. What did you say? Captain Rodriguez asked. I said that young birds must leave the nest when they are ready to fly, Maya whispered. He told me that although I was ready to return to my pack, there would always be a place for me in their pod. He said that he would miss me every day. Dr. Vasquez made a decision that changed everything. Maya asked if Brighttail wanted to come with them, just for a little while to make sure I was safe. Mia's face lit up as she translated the offer. Brighttail's response was immediate and enthusiastic, his fur shining gold and silver with excitement. Yes, Maya laughed. He wanted to see the empty human nest, and an hour later the shuttle lifted off from Kepler 442c, carrying the most unusual passengers in the history of the colonial fleet. Maya Chen sat next to Brighttail and told him the names of the stars visible through the viewport. The young Verasi's crystal-like fur reflected the starlight, filling the shuttle with a soft, shimmering rainbow pattern. By the time they reached UES Decision, word had already spread among the passenger. Crew members lined the hallways, hoping to catch a glimpse of the alien who had protected the human child. Brittle watched everything with wide, curious eyes, his fur constantly changing with wonder and amazement. Captain Rodriguez had Mia's own room, right next door to Brittle, and the ship's doctor examined Mia thoroughly, marveling at her perfect health after 3 months in the alien wilderness. These clearly knew how to care for a human child. Martinez said she showed no signs of malnutrition, illness or psychological trauma. On the contrary, she seemed remarkably well-adjusted and happy. That night, Maya and Brighttail had their first formal interview with Dr. Vasquez. The alien psychologist was astounded by the information he had obtained. Maya later told Captain Rodriguez that they have a complex understanding of emotions and relationships. They communicate not only with words but also with the color of their fur and the musical characteristics of their voices. Maya is learning to read these signals, and they are learning to interpret human facial expressions and body language. What about their level of intelligence? The captain asked. It is astounding. They may not have technology, but their social and philosophical development far exceeds what we normally see in pre-technological species. They have astonishingly sophisticated concepts of ethics, justice, and moral responsibility. Dr. Vasquez paused, looking at his notes. Commander, they saved Maya not because they expected anything in return, but because their moral code demanded it. They risked their lives for a member of a species they had never met, simply because she was a child who needed protection. Meanwhile, in Maya's room, she was teaching Brighttail human skills. Little Varasi was fascinated by everything: lights that turned on with a switch, food that came out of machines, windows that showed the stars outside. You people are so clever, Brighttail said in his improving human speech. But do you ever miss the simple things like the wind, the rustling of leaves, the feel of earth beneath your feet? Maya thought seriously at times. But we built this ship to explore and meet new friends. Just like meeting you and your family. The bright fur of her tail turned a warm pink and gold. We have changed since we met you, bright little soul. They learned that even if they were of different species, living creatures could become family. 3 days later, they arrived at the nearest human colony planet. Captain Rodriguez had been in constant contact with Colony Command, and the story of Maya and Soup 2 had already reached Earth. Footage of Maya and Soup 2's reunion was being transmitted throughout human space. The image of a tiny human girl embracing these living jewel-like creatures captured the hearts of billions of people. Captain Rodriguez received a message from Colonial Command. He was ordered to return the girl and the alien representative to Earth immediately. This has been classified as a top priority first-stage contact situation. As Maya prepared to depart for Earth, she spent hours recording messages for Velok Blight, who helped her translate complex human concepts into his species' musical language. Tell Don Shimmer that the human doctors would like to help treat her burns. Maya spoke into the recorder. Tell Gentle Song I'll send him pictures of Earth. Tell everyone I'll never forget. Brighttail's translation was a beautiful song, sending Maya's love and gratitude across the starry sky. On their last night before arriving on Earth, Maya and Brighttail sat in the ship's observation lounge, gazing at the stars. The other crew members gathered around them, listening to them talk about life in the forest. "Do you think humans can be friends forever?" Maya asked Brighttail. The young Varasi thought long and hard. His fur turned a thoughtful silver and blue. "I think," he said slowly, "when two species learn to love each other's children, they become more than friends. They become family." Dr. Vasquez, who was recording their conversation, felt tears well up in her eyes. She began to understand that this first contact was unlike any other in human history. It was not based on trade agreements or territorial negotiations, but on love, sacrifice, and the simple realization that protecting children is the supreme duty of all sentient life. As the Earth grew larger in the view screen, Maya fell asleep in Brighttail's warm, crystalline fur. As the young Varasi continued to watch over her, its colors changing into a gentle pattern symbolizing protection and familial love, Captain Rodriguez watched them from across the lounge and knew everything was about to change. When humanity learned the full extent of what Varasi had done for a small human child, the galaxy would never be the same again. The ship's radio operator approached quietly. "Captain, we have hundreds of messages from Earth. Reporters, government officials, xenobiologists, all wanting to interview the child and the alien." Captain Rodriguez nodded. "Everyone please hold off. That's enough about Maya and Brighttail. Once they landed, they would tell the tale when they were ready, not before." Looking back at the sleeping child and the alien protecting her, Captain Rodriguez made a silent vow. Humanity owes Varasi a debt that can never be repaid. Whatever happens from now on, she promises to acknowledge and honor that debt. The stars slowly rotated beyond the observation window as the determined UEE carried their precious cargo to Earth. In a few days, Maya Chen and Brighttail would stand before the most powerful humans in the galaxy and tell their story. It was a story that would change the course of history, launch thousands of ships, and teach mankind the true meaning of protecting those who cannot protect themselves. But now it was just the story of a little girl and her crystal furry friends, who loved her so much they would sacrifice everything for her safety. And in the silence of the ship's night, that was an United Nations headquarters on Earth was in chaos like never before. Reporters from major news networks crowded the plaza outside the building, while inside, delegates from across the human universe gathered for what many are calling the most important meeting in the history of the United Nations. Maya Chen, now 8 years old, sat quietly in the witness preparation room with Brighttail beside her. The young Varasi's crystal-like fur showed silver and blue patterns as he struggled to make sense of his surroundings. "There are so many humans out there," Brighttail said in his now much more fluent human speech. "More than the trees in our forest." Maya reached out and gently touched his paw. "They want to hear our stories. They want to know about your people." Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the room, carrying a tablet full of notes. Over the past month since their arrival on Earth, she had become Maya and Brighttail's voice and protector, making sure they didn't get overwhelmed by the constant attention. "Are you ready?" she asked gently. "Remember, tell them the truth about what happened. Show them how brave and kind they are." Maya nodded, her stomach pounding with tension. Brighttail's fur turned a warm gold and pink, a sign that he was trying to be brave for her. In the main assembly hall, Secretary General Amara Okafor called the meeting to order. The massive conference room was packed with delegates, scientists, military personnel, and corporate representatives. A holographic display showed the session being broadcast live to every human colony in the galaxy. "We had gathered today to hear testimonies about humanity's first contact with this species." Secretary General Okafor announced that this contact was unique in that it was initiated not through formal diplomacy, but through extraordinary courage and kindness. The first to take the stand were Maya's parents, Dr. James and Dr. Lisa Ch. They were rescued from a pirate slave ship 3 weeks after Mia went missing, and have been desperately searching for their daughter ever since. Her daughter was 7 years old at the time of the pirate attack. Lisa Chen's voice trembled with emotion as she said, "When we found out that our daughter not only survived, but was being protected and cared for by aliens we never knew existed, we thought we had lost her forever." She paused, wiping away tears. "They saved our daughter's life, but more than that, they loved her and made her a part of our family. Words cannot express our gratitude." James Chen stepped forward and said, "I have been working with extraterrestrial life my whole life, but I have never encountered a species that showed such pure, selfless kindness. The Mayans protected us for 3 months, asking for nothing in return. They shared food, risked their lives, and treated her like one of their own." Captain Sarah Rodriguez then testified about the rescue and first contact, describing how Maya appeared healthy and happy, surrounded by alien caretakers who were clearly dedicated to her care. Captain Rodriguez reported that the Varisi had no fear of our weapons or concern for their own safety. Their only concern was Maya's well-being. We offered to take Brighttail aboard our ship to ensure Maya's safety during the transition, and he readily agreed, even though he had never left his homeland. Colonial Fleet Commander, Admiral Marcus Thompson, explained the strategic situation. The Varisi homeworld of Kepler 432c is rich in rare minerals and is located in a strategically vital region. Admiral Thompson explained that several major corporations have already laid claim to the system. Furthermore, our sources indicate that the Hagigemini have begun reconnaissance of the region. A murmur arose throughout the gathering as the Hagigemini's name was mentioned. Humanity's primary rival in the galaxy was known for its aggressive expansion and mistreatment of lesser races. Admiral Thompson continued, "If we do not act to protect the Hagigemini, they will almost certainly be enslaved or wiped out by corporate exploitation or hegemonic conquest. These beings saved human children. They could not abandon them now," but not everyone at the meeting agreed. Marcus Steele, president of the Earth Corporate Alliance, stood up to speak. "We all relate to this inspiring story, but we must consider the practical implications." Steele said, "The Vala are a pre-technological species with no obvious resources or strategic value. It would be economically irresponsible to commit vast military resources to defending them." Furthermore, Chinny, the Outer Colonies representative, added, "We have our own people to protect. Colonial settlements are constantly under threat from pirates and hostile aliens. Can we really afford to send a fleet to protect a species that gives us nothing in return?" The ensuing discussion became heated. Some delegates argued that protecting the universe was a moral imperative, while others argued that humanity could not afford to be the galactic police. Maya and Brighttail were then called to the stand. Maya and Brighttail walked gracefully across the polished floor on their 6 legs to the stand. A hush fell upon them as they caught sight of the little human girl and her crystal-furred companion. "Hello," Maya said, her voice clear and firm, though nervous. "My name is Maya Chen, and this is my friend Brighttail. I'd like to tell you about these people." For the next hour, Maya continued to talk about her 3 months with Varisi. She told me about Dawn Shimmer's bravery in protecting her from the pirates, about Gentle Song's kindness in sharing his food, and how the whole pot came together to protect her. They didn't have to help me. Maya said they had never seen a human before. They only knew scary stories about us. But when they found me crying and scared, they helped me anyway, because that's who they are. Brater began to speak himself, his musical voice ringing clearly over the meeting hall's speakers. "My people have a legend," he said slowly, carefully choosing his human word. "A race's worth is measured not in its strength or its weapons, but in how it treats the powerless. When we found Maya, a tiny, radiant spirit, she was powerless and frightened. To abandon her would be to abandon our soul." He paused, his fur turning a deep blue and silver, the color of serious thought. "We seek nothing from humans but understanding. We seek neither technology nor wealth. We simply want to live in peace in our forest home for thousands of years to come. But if others try to harm us, we cannot defend ourselves. We are not warriors." The gathering fell silent. Brighttail continued. "Maya taught us that humans can be kind and good. She learned our songs and sang with us under the stars. Blood aside, she was our sister. If humans truly care about their children, please protect those who protected her." When Maya and Bryther finished their testimony, the room was in tears. But the discussion resumed, with business representatives and military officials arguing about costs and strategic priorities. Elena Vasquez then asked permission to speak to the audience. As a leading expert in psychology and culture, her words carried great weight. "Esteemed delegates," she began, "over the past month I have studied society through my interactions with Brighttail, and the communications I have received from his home world. What I have learned calls into question many of our assumptions about intelligence and civilization." She activated a holographic display, showing the image of the Velasi society that Brighttail had helped them understand. The Velali have no armies, no weapons, and no concept of war. They have lived in perfect harmony with their natural environment for over 10. Their social structure is based entirely on cooperation and mutual aid. They have achieved something that many species, including our own, still struggle to achieve: a truly peaceful society, and that is why they are vulnerable. Senator Steele interjected. "They cannot defend themselves and they have no strategic value." Dr. Vasquez turned to him and said, "Senator Steele, you are both wrong. The Varisi have immense strategic value, but it is not the kind of value you think it is. They are proof that an intelligent species can live without violence, without destroying the environment, without endless conflict. They are a living example of what we can become, she said, pointing to Maya and Brighttail. And their inability to defend themselves is precisely why it is so important to protect them. If humanity is to be respected among the stars, we must demonstrate that we protect the innocent, not just those who benefit us. The debate continued for hours, but the turning point came when Maya asked to speak again. May I say something? The 8-year-old asked, stepping back to the stage. Secretary General Okapalu nodded. Of course, Maya. Maya looked around at the assembled delegates, then up at the camera broadcasting her remarks across the galaxy. I know I'm just a child, she said, but I understand what you're saying. Some people may think that enforcing the will would be too expensive. Some people might think it's not important enough to worry about. She paused, touching Brighttail's paw. But I want to tell you what Dawn Shimmer told me on our last night in the forest. That the true worth of a person or a species is not determined by how they treat those who help them, but by how they treat those who don't. Maya's voice grew stronger as she continued. The Vorasi can't help me get home. They've given me nothing of value. They've only given me love and protection, freely given even at the risk of harming themselves. She looked directly into the main camera. If we do not protect them now, what does that say about our existence? What does it say about humanity? The entire galaxy is watching to see what we will do for those who saved one of our children. The chamber erupted in applause. The delegates rose to their feet, cheering for the little girl who had spoken more wisely than many seasoned politicians. Once the dust had settled, Secretary General Okafor called for a formal vote. The item on our agenda is Resolution 257, declaring protected species to be placed under the active protection of humanity. Are we all in favor? The vote was not even close. Representatives from across the human sphere voted overwhelmingly in favor of this resolution, impressed by Maya's speech and the public reaction it generated. Some corporate representatives voted in favor. Resolution 2, Secretary General Okafor announced. For the first time in human history, entire alien species will come under our protection, not as subjects or protectorates, but as esteemed friends. The Guardian Species Declaration was comprehensive and unprecedented. The Vorasi Protection Protocol was enacted, dedicating a significant portion of the colonial fleet to system defense, creating the first-ever interspecies cultural exchange program, and most importantly, declaring that any threat to the Vorasi people was a direct threat to humanity itself. Admiral Thompson was ordered to establish a permanent defense base in the Velasi system, and given command of the new Guardian fleet. Captain Rodriguez was promoted to admiral and put in charge of day-to-day defense operations. Maya was appointed humanity's first cultural ambassador, a position created especially for her. Though she was young, there was no one better suited to act as a bridge between the two races. After the rally, Maya and Brighttail were surrounded by reporters and well-wishers. Their young fur shone with gold and pink, the colors of joy and excitement. What will you do now? A reporter asked Maya. I want to go back to Kepler 44-2c, Mia answered without hesitation. I want to see my family again, and I want to help humans and be their friend. Brighttail, what do you think? Another reporter asked, what do you think about humanity's decision? Brighttail replied in musical Vorasi, a language translated by Maya. Today 2 races have become one family. His people will remember this kindness for 10,000 generations, he said. That night, Maya and Brighttail attended a celebratory dinner in their honor. Leaders from across the human universe gathered to meet the two and hear their stories in person. But the most important moment came when Maya's parents finally had a quiet moment with Brighttail and thanked him in person for saving their daughter. You gave us our daughter back, Dr. Brighttail said. How can I ever repay you? Lisa Chen said, tears in her eyes. How can I ever repay you? Brighttail pondered the question, his fur turning a soft blue and silver. Your daughter also gave us something, he said in careful human terms. She taught us that there are many friends in the universe we have yet to meet. That is repayment enough. Late that night, Maya sat in her room in the United Nations guest quarters, video calling Dawn Shimmer and another Velasi in Kepler 40. The distance made the transmission a little unclear, but she could see the crystalline fur and hear the musical voice clearly. Tell me about the vote, Brighttail said, his fur shining with excitement. Maya explained the Guardian race's proclamation in Velasi. Her young voice took on the musical tone she knew so well. Songs of amazement and gratitude rang out from her home world. Dawn Shimmer asked if this meant the evil ones could no longer harm us. Maya translated, tell them that humanity will protect the surviving ships, came a voice from the doorway. Mia turned as Admiral Thompson entered the room. The senior military officer knelt to her eye level. Mia, I want you to know that what you and Brighttail did today has made all the difference. The Guardian fleet will be the most elite force humanity has ever assembled. No one will threaten the Varasi while we draw our breath. He stared at Brighttail. Your people saved our child. Now we will protect yours. This is more than just a promise. It is a sacred oath. Brighttail's fur shone with silver and gold, colors of honor and gratitude. As Maya got ready for bed, she thought back on what had happened. A year ago she had been just an ordinary research station child, playing with space lizards and learning about plants. Now she was an ambassador between species, and her alien companions were under the protection of the most powerful military force in the human universe. Brighttail, she said to the young Brighttail as he sat down on the cushioned area provided for him. Do you really think we can stay friends forever? Human and Brighttail's fur has turned a warm pink and gold, a color that signifies familial love, he said, calling her name. Today your kind proved that they understand what my kind learned long ago, that the strongest bonds are not forged by treaties or trade agreements, but by love, sacrifice, and promises to protect each other's children. Outside the window, the lights of Earth's largest city shone like stars. Tomorrow she would return to Kepler 442c, where a guardian fleet had already assembled to protect the forest world and its kind people. Maya fell asleep thinking about home, both the human's home and her own. For the first time in her young life she understood that home was more than just a place where there were people who loved you enough to sacrifice everything for your safety. And now 2 species have found just such a place. The Guardian Species Declaration will face challenges in the coming years. Some will challenge humanity's resolve. Some will question the wisdom of protecting a species that offers no clear benefit. But that night, as the 8-year-old ambassador slept peacefully next to his crystal-furred friend, the foundation of one of the strongest alliances the galaxy has ever known was forged. An alliance born not of politics or profit, but of a simple truth understood by both species. The value of a civilization is measured by how it treats those who cannot protect themselves. And by that measure, humanity and the universe both proved worthy of the stars. 18 months after the Guardian Race's declaration, the system was transformed. Where once only forests and pristine moons orbited the orange star, Guardian stations now floated in space, monuments of steel and crystal to interspecies friendship. Commander Jangi stood on the station's observation deck, watching human and Veloci children play together in the low-gravity recreation area. The sight still amazed him. Even after months of overseeing cultural exchange programs, the very air seemed to sparkle as human children taught Veloci children how to throw a ball and crystal-furred children taught humans how to sing in harmony. Commander, the communications officer called from the bridge. We've spotted several approaching vessels, marked by Mark 427 beacons. John's moment of calm was cut short. Identification unknown, but sensor signature matches the pattern of a hegemony destroyer. We're responding, there are many. Sean hurried to the bridge, where the crew was already at their posts. The main screen showed 15 ships exiting hyperspace at the edge of the system. Their sleek, predatory designs were unmistakably hegemony ships, but they were flying alongside ships with different markings. Please provide an analysis, Lieutenant Park. Chang asked the intelligence officer. Lieutenant Park reported 12 hegemony ships, and 3 syndicate slavers claiming salvage rights to an abandoned Crimson Fleet facility on an outer moon. John felt his jaw tighten. The Crimson Fleet base had been destroyed by Guardian forces months before, but its remains offered a convenient legal pretext for anyone wanting to establish a base in the system. Send a message to the lead ship, John ordered. Inform them that the system is under human custody and that you must state your business. The response came quickly. The voice over the speaker was cold but polite. Guardian Station, this is Hegemony Admiral Krell. We are conducting a legitimate salvage operation of an abandoned facility. All appropriate complaints have been filed with the Galactic Commerce Authority. John studied the tactical display carefully. The Hegemony ship remained just outside the officially designated protected area, but its positioning was clearly aggressive. This was an exploration, a test to see how seriously humanity took its involvement in the Varese. Admiral Krell, I apologize again for the fact that this entire star system has been designated a protected area under human colonial rule. All military action requires prior approval. Commander John, Admiral Krell replied. John was perturbed that Commander Hegemony knew his name. We are not conducting a military operation. We are simply salvagers clearing the remains of the criminal organization your forces have destroyed. It was careful wordplay. The Hegemony were technically within their right to claim the abandoned facility, but everyone knew this was the first step toward establishing a permanent base closer to their homeworld. Over the next week, things gradually escalated. The massive ships began routine patrols, gradually approaching the airspace. Syndicate ships began mineral surveys on asteroids throughout the system. Each action was technically legal, but the overall trend was clear. Maya Chen, now 10 years old and fluent in both human and non-human languages, served as the primary liaison between the Guardian Station and the Velasi surface community. She traveled between the orbital station and the forest settlement, helping both species understand each other's concern. The elders were concerned, she reported to Commander John in her daily briefings. They could sense the emotional resonance of hostile ships. The Ferasi were highly sensitive to aggressive intent. Brighttail, now considered an adult by Vashi's standards but still young at heart, became Mir's co-ambassador. His understanding of both cultures was invaluable in bridging the communication gap. My people do not understand why such an ill-feeling ship is even allowed to stay, Brighttail said, his crystal fur showing disturbing blue and gray patterns. Humanity has promised to protect us, but dangerous beings are growing bolder by the day. John wished he could give them a simple answer. But galactic politics are never simple. We cannot attack without provocation. If we strike first, other species will see us as aggressors. We must wait until they make the first hostile move. What if someone gets hurt while we're waiting? Maya asked, her expression belying her age. Before John could reply, alarms began blaring throughout the station. An urgent message came through to the bridge commander. Emergency. John hurried to the bridge with Maya and Brighttail. A scene that made his blood run cold was displayed on the main screen. Hegemony's fighters struck the village, energy weapons scorching what had only moments before been Crystal 4 gardens. Admiral Krell, get me now, Chang shouted. Admiral Hegemony's face appeared on the screen, expressionless as explosions continued in the background. Admiral, fighters are attacking a civilian settlement, Chang said, struggling to keep his voice even. Cease firing immediately. Commander John, there appears to be confusion. Admiral Krell replied calmly. The pilots are conducting navigation training. Any damage to ground installations was purely accidental. That's a civilian village, Maya shouted, stepping forward. There are children below, Admiral Krell's cold gaze fixed on Maya. You're the famous human child who started all this trouble. It's good to finally meet you. Looking at the tactical display, John could see that one of the large fighter jets had crashed during the attack. The pilot had safely ejected and was being rescued by his wingman. Admiral, this navigational error has caused one of our pilots to crash, John said carefully. They were prepared to assist in a rescue effort. There will be no need, Krell replied. However, the hegemony would demand compensation for the loss of military equipment due to the hazardous navigation conditions in this system. John felt his fists clench. Bearded Manny had just attacked a civilian settlement, and now he was demanding compensation for the crash of his own fighter jet. This was a provocation, a test of humanity's resolve. Maya Brighttail, head to the communications center. John ordered. I want every news station in humanity to know what has just happened. What happened next was like nothing the galaxy has ever seen. With smoke still rising from the attacked village, Mia's live broadcast from the Guardian Station spread across human space within minutes. Standing next to Brighttail, his crystal fur clouded with grief and fear, Mia spoke directly to the camera in both human and musical velocity. This is Maya Chen from Guardian Station, she began, her young voice calm despite tears in her eyes. 18 months ago, these people saved my life when pirates attacked our research station. They protected me for 3 months and in return, they only gave me the opportunity to do the right thing. Brighter was singing a gentle morning song to the injured Belasi below. He was talking about his cousin, the Shimmer of Stars, who was injured in today's attack. In Belasi's age, she is only 5 years old. She was tending the Crystal Gardens when the ship arrived. Maya's voice grew louder as she continued. Bearded Manny called this a navigational error. You want me to pay for the downed fighter jet, but I've seen what true navigational error looks like. This wasn't it. This was an attack on innocent people, whose voices had never been heard. Brighttail added the words himself, his human delivery taking on a musical quality familiar to viewers across human space. We saved Maya because all children deserve protection. Now our own children are being harmed and villains are demanding payment for their weapons. Is this galactic justice? Mia looked directly into the camera, a determination on her young face that reminded viewers of her famous speech at the United Nations. Bill saved me when I had nothing to gain and everything to lose. He protected me when scary stories told me humans were dangerous. If we don't protect them now, and bullies hurt us and demand payment, what is our true nature? She paused, touching Brighttail's paw. The people of Brighttails taught us that a man's worth isn't determined by how he treats those who help him, but by how he treats those who don't. The entire galaxy was watching to determine humanity's true worth. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Recruitment centers across the human sphere were inundated with applicants seeking assignment to the Guardian fleet. Protests erupted on major colony worlds demanding greater protection for corporate leaders who opposed the Guardian Species Proclamation, and the move faced boycotts and strong public backlash. However, the most significant response came from Admiral Marcus Thompson, commander of the Guardian fleet, who was leading reinforcements into the system when the attack occurred. To all ships of the Guardian fleet, Admiral Thompson. His transmission reached every human ship in the region. What we witnessed today was not a navigational error. It was a deliberate attack on civilians under our protection. The hegemony chose to test our resolve, and they will find that our resolve can never be broken. 2 years have passed since Maya Chen first addressed the United Nations, and the galaxy has changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Guardian Species Declaration sparked a movement that spread across the stars, to civilizations that had never known Earth or the Valashi exist. Maya, now 12 years old, stood on the observation deck of the new Interspecies Academy, orbiting Guardian Station. Through the clear aluminum windows, she could see the ships of dozens of different civilizations parked in the vast facility. Human ships shared space with the elegant bioships of the Alari Collective. The crystal structures of the Harmony Singers, even a modified Crash Empire patrol boat. "I can't believe it all started with getting lost in the forest," a voice said from behind her. Maya turned to see a bright tail approaching, his crystalline fur bearing the intricate patterns that marked him as a mature adult among his kind. 22 in human years, still young by most standards, he had become one of the most respected intercessory diplomats in the galaxy. "It didn't start because I was lost," Maya corrected with a smile. "It started when your people tried to help a frightened girl even though they had every reason to fear humans." Brighttail's fur turned a warm gold, the color of happy memory. "And now look what came from that single act of kindness." Below them, the Veloci's home planet rotated slowly in space, its forest protected by the most powerful defenses in the galaxy. But that protection went far beyond military might. The planet became a symbol of hope for peaceful species throughout the galaxy. "It's proof that the strong can choose to protect the weak rather than exploit them," Maya Brighttail called out to Dr. Elena Vasquez as she approached from the Academy's front hallway. Now in her 50s, she was the director of the Inner Spies Cultural Exchange Program and looked younger than her age. Buoyed by the work they love, the Hegemony delegation arrived. "Ready for the meeting?" Maya asked, feeling the familiar tension wash over her. The Hegemony had requested the meeting, insisting they wanted to discuss new terms of engagement in the region. Since their defeat 2 years ago, they have largely avoided human-protected territory, but recent intelligence suggests they have something big planned. "Do you have any information on what they really want?" Maya asked, heading into the main conference room. Admiral Thompson thought they were working on some kind of treaty. Dr. Vasquez replied. The defeat at Varasi had shaken their confidence. Losing face in front of the entire galaxy was not something a hegemonic power could afford to take lightly. The conference room was an incredible place of interspecies cooperation. It was designed to accommodate creatures of vastly different sizes, environments, and sensory needs. Atmospheric zones could be adjusted depending on breathing needs. The gravity field was also adjustable, and a translation system allowed for real-time communication in over 300 languages. Already seated around the great circular table were representatives of the Alliance of Protected World, ambassadors of the Altari Collective. As the growing alliance was known, graceful like living trees with silvery leaves, gently rustled and said what Maya considered to be their equivalent of a greeting. The Harmony Singers, all crystalline beings of similar evolutionary trajectories, sang a soft melody of welcome. Admiral Thompson entered with the human delegation, his face carefully blank. The years since the Velasi incident had transformed him from a career soldier into one of the most respected peacekeepers in the galaxy. His mere presence was often enough to deter invasion. "I ask that you all understand the seriousness of this situation," Admiral Thompson said as he took his seat prior to the arrival of the Hegemony delegation. "Our sources indicate that they are facing pressure from their own people. This defeat has shown the other hegemonic races that their forces are not invincible." Several member worlds were questioning their continued membership. Their bright tail fur turned a deep blue, the color of serious contemplation. Did they come for peace, or a new test of their hegemony? "Always both," Admiral Thompson replied grimly. The front doors of the chamber slid open, and a large delegation entered. Leading them was Admiral Krell, who had ordered the attack on the Varasi village 2 years ago. His face betrayed no emotion, but Maya sensed the tension in his posture. Behind Krell stood representatives of the various species that were members of Hegemony, some of whom Mia recognized from her intelligence briefings. The diversity was astounding. Hegemony ruled through force, not cooperation, but it was still a confederation of different worlds and people. Admiral Thompson, Krell said, sitting across the table. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. The Hegemony Council has authorized us to negotiate new arrangements for this sector. Admiral Krell Thompson replied calmly. We are always open to discussing peace, but I want to be clear, the protection of our allied species is non-negotiable. Admiral Krell looked around the table, staring at the assembled delegates. His expression hardened slightly as his gaze fell on Maya and Brighttail. Yes. The famous child ambassador and her pet alien, he said with barely concealed contempt, still playing diplomacy. Maya felt anger rise in her chest, but Brighttail's gentle touch on her arm calmed her down. His fur was a uniform silver and gold, the colors of patience and wisdom. Admiral Krell, Maya said in a calm, clear voice. Brighttail is not my pet, he's my partner, my friend, and one of the wisest people I know. Your inability to understand that says more about you than it does about him. Maya's frank response caused several of the Hegemony representatives to squirm uncomfortably. Krell's face flushed red with rage, but before he could reply, another voice came from the Hegemony delegation. The young ambassador was telling the truth, said a being Maya hadn't expected. It was Varasi, but she didn't recognize him. His crystalline fur was blacker than she had ever seen it, with markings that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. I am the shadow of sorrow, the Dark One continued in its own musical language. The translation system translated it into standard galactic tongue. I represent those who have chosen a different path than those who protected the human children. Maya and Brighttail stared in shock. They had never heard of a Varasi leaving their home planet, let alone joining a hegemonic power. You're a Varasi? Brighttail's fur was a mix of blue and gray. How can you serve those who attacked our people? Sadness Shadow's black fur swayed in patterns Maya had never seen before. You have learned that kindness is weakness, young cousin. Those whom you trust so much will abandon you the moment the situation becomes inconvenient. It is better to serve power than to believe false promises. The room fell silent as the meaning of his words dawned on her. The Hegemon hadn't come simply to negotiate. He had come to sow a rift in the alliance, to show that even an ally could betray humanity's protectors. How many? Admiral Thompson asked quietly. Hundreds, Krell replied with satisfaction. Apparently our allies do not share the innocent trust your beloved species has in humanity. Some of them understood the true nature of galactic politics. Maya's heart broke. The thought that someone could turn their backs on their people, on the alliance that had been born out of kindness, was too painful to bear. But then Brighttail did the unexpected. He began to sing. It was not the gentle harmonies Maya was used to hearing from her friend. It was a deep, complex song reserved for the most solemn occasions of the Valai elders. Crystal's fur shone with silver and gold, and his voice filled the room with a haunting melody that seemed to reach every soul. As the song ended, a different color flashed across Sad Shadow's black fur. Silver and blue blended for a moment, but he quickly suppressed it. What did you sing? Maya asked gently. The Song of the Lost Pod, Brighttail answered sadly. I sang it for my family who have forgotten who they are, to remind them that there is always a way home. The shadow of sadness rose suddenly, its black fur clearly showing signs of conflict and pain. Cousin, your song cannot change reality. Hegemony offers protection based on force. Humanity offers protection based on emotion. Which do you think will last longer? Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Admiral Thompson's comms unit crackled to life. Admiral, multiple hyperspace signals approaching. Large ones. This is the largest Hegemony fleet I have ever observed. Krell smiled coldly. Yes, it appears the rest of the delegation has arrived. 57 ships, Admiral Thompson. This is the largest battle fleet assembled by the Hegemony in recent memory. I thought it was time to settle the question of who truly controls this sector. Maya felt a surge of fear in her heart, but Admiral Thompson's face remained calm. Admiral Krell, you are making a grave error, Thompson said quietly. This station is home to representatives of over 30 species. An attack here would be an act of war against the entire alliance, which, Krell laughed, is a collection of weaker species hiding under the protection of humans. With the protector fleet destroyed, they would soon remember the wisdom of serving the stronger. But as the Hegemony fleet took up positions on the outskirts of the system, something unexpected happened. Ships began emerging from hyperspace from all directions. Not human ships, but ships from all member states of the Alliance of Protector Worlds. The Altari Collective's bioships moved with organic grace, forming defensive formations that seemed nurtured rather than constructed. The Harmony Singer's crystal ships emitted frequencies that disrupted enemy targeting systems. Even peaceful agricultural worlds sent ships they could spare. Admiral Krell, It appears we've miscalculated, Thompson said. A tactical display showed over 200 Alliance ships in a defensive formation. The Alliance is not a collection of weaker species hiding under the protection of humans. It is a family that protects each other. Maya watched in amazement as species that had never fought before worked together so meticulously, as if they had been lifelong allies. The Verassi may not have had warships, but their crystal technology enhanced the sensors and communications capabilities of Confederate warships. Altari bioships could repair damage that would regenerate conventional vessels. The Harmony Signal frequency weapons could disable electronics without harming organic life forms. Nothing changes, Krell said, but Maya could hear the worry in his voice. The Hegemony fleet still had the advantage through sheer firepower. Perhaps so, Admiral Thompson replied, but they fight for conquest. We fight for family. The battle that followed was fiercest in recorded galactic history. Not only did humanity defend it, but dozens of species fought together to protect the ideals that bound them together. Maya and Brighttail watched the battle unfold from the Academy's command center. While the Hegemony fleet was certainly powerful, they had not anticipated facing such united resistance. Their tactics were designed to intimidate individual worlds, not to fight a coordinated alliance. The turning point came when Admiral Thompson made a decision that military historians will debate for generations to come. Instead of focusing on destroying the Hegemony fleet, he ordered his fleet to attack its engines and weapons, disabling rather than destroying them. Admiral, the tactical officer, protested. We can finish them faster if we launch an all-out attack, Thompson replied firmly. No, we're not here to prove we can kill more efficiently than they can. We're here to prove there's a better way. The strategy worked. Faced with an enemy clearly capable of destroying them, they chose restraint. Many Hegemony fleets began to surrender rather than fight to the death. The psychological impact was devastating. The hegemonic philosophy was based on the belief that strength is the will to use overwhelming force. With Admiral Krell's flagship finally neutralized, the remaining Hegemony fleet was surrounded but not destroyed. Thompson initiated communication with the entire enemy fleet. Hegemony, this is Admiral Thompson. Your fleet is defeated, but not destroyed. This is our choice. You came here believing that strength is a willingness to kill. We have shown that true strength is the wisdom to defend. The reply came not from Krell, but from one of the other Hegemony commanders. Admiral Thompson, this is Commander Vex of the Second Fleet. I did not expect such restraint from an enemy with such clear tactical superiority. Why don't you finish us off? Thompson's reply was broadcast throughout the system, reaching every ship in the Alliance, not just the defeated Hegemony fleet. Commander Vex, we all remember why we came here. A little girl was saved by beings who had every reason to fear her kind, but who chose kindness. They taught me that the value of a civilization lies not in how efficiently it destroys its enemies, but in how cleverly it turns them into allies. In the Inter-Academy Command Center, Maya felt tears streaming down her cheeks, a shadow of sadness. The Dark Verassi, who had joined the group, stared at the tactical displays, wonder and confusion etched across his fur. I don't understand, he said in the musical language of The humans have completely won. Why don't they avenge the attack on their village? Brighttail's reply was calm but firm. That is not their nature, lost cousin. They learned from us what we learned from our ancestors. The cycle of violence can only end when someone chooses to be stronger than angry. For days afterward, the aftermath of the battle sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Hegemon's crushing defeat was due not to superior weapons or tactics, but to fundamental philosophical difference. Species across the galaxy began to question whether rule by fear was truly the most effective form of government. The most significant moment came when Commander Vex formally requested the defection of his entire fleet. 47 ships and over 10,000 personnel, choosing to defect from Hegemony rather than return to a system based on oppression. Why? Maya asked Vex during the debrief. You've been loyal to Hegemony for over 20 years. What had changed? The grizzled commander, a reptilian from a planet conquered by a hegemonic power decades ago, considered his words carefully. Young ambassador, throughout my career, I have believed that fear and strength are the same thing. Today I learned the difference. Admiral Thompson had the power to completely destroy my fleet, but he chose mercy. It's a strength I've never known before. He paused, gazing out the station's window at his home planet. When I was your age, my people were conquered by a hegemonic power. I told myself that serving them was the only way to protect my family. But as I watched the Alliance fight today, I realized I had been protecting them from the wrong enemy. The real enemy was not an external threat, but the system that had led me to believe I had no choice but to succumb to oppression. News of Hegemony's defeat and mass exodus reached every corner of the galaxy within days. On dozens of worlds, peaceful species began to organize and resist their oppressors. The Protector Worlds Alliance received hundreds of membership requests from civilizations previously afraid to stand up for themselves, but the most significant change came from within Hegemony. 3 days after the battle, a shadow of sadness approached Maya and Brighttail. His dark crystal fur bore a distinct pattern of silver and blue. "You've disappeared, cousin," Brighttail said gently, in the Velozi way of politely addressing a separated family. "You seem troubled." "I was thinking of the song you sang of the lost pod," the shadow of sadness answered, its musical voice laced with notes of anxiety and hope. "I had told myself I had joined the Hegemony to be realistic about galactic politics, but watching the battles, watching the Alliance fight together to protect each other, I realized that perhaps I had been the one who hadn't grasped reality." Maya stepped forward, her young face radiating a compassion that belied her years. "What reality is this?" "Kindness is not weakness," Shadow of Sorrow said, his fur now gleamed silver and gold. "Protection does not require domination. A family built on love is stronger than an empire built on fear." He paused, looking Maya directly in the eye. "When your cousins found you in the forest, you were just a scared child. But you taught them something that would change the galaxy. You taught them that strangers can become family, that differences of species do not matter if the heart is pure." "Verasi taught me that," Maya replied. "I was just scared and lost. They chose to help, and now their choice gives hope to billions across the galaxy," the Shadow of Sorrow said. "A world that thought it had no choice but to accept oppression now knew there was another way. A species that thought it was too weak to stand up for itself learned that it didn't have to stand alone." 6 months later, Maya stood on the same observation deck where she had spoken with Brighttail, which had begun this chapter, but now the landscape had changed dramatically. Orbital space around Veloci's homeworld was filled with starships from over 100 species, all members of the Alliance of Protective Worlds. The Academy had grown to accommodate students from dozens of civilizations, all learning the principles that began with small acts of kindness in the forest clearing. Human children played alongside young Veloci. Althari saplings hatched crystal harmony singers, and dozens of other creatures. "Look at how much you've grown since your decision to help a lost child," Maya said to the Shimmer of the Dawn on her first visit to the Academy. Having been awarded the title of Elder of the Alliance in recognition of his work as the movement's founder, the old Verasi elder surveyed the bustling space station with a gleaming sense of satisfaction. "Little shining spirit," she said in an ancient voice, "when I found you crying in the forest, I never imagined this would happen. I just knew you needed help and that it was the right thing to do. But there was more." Maya replied, "You showed the galaxy that there is another way to live, that the strong can protect the weak instead of exploiting them, that kindness can be a source of strength rather than weakness." Brighttail approached with a group of young people of various species, the first graduates of the Intersex Academy, about to embark on their mission as ambassadors and peacekeepers, delivering the Alliance's message of hope to planets across the galaxy. "Maya," Brighttail said, his mature fur etched with the intricate markings that marked him as one of the galaxy's most respected diplomats. "The Council has made a decision regarding the request of the Kresh Empire." The Kresh Empire, one of the most aggressive military powers in the galaxy, surprised everyone by requesting protection from the Alliance after a civil war broke out on their homeworld. The irony is clear to all. A species that once threatened to conquer the Alliance is now asking for its help. "What did they decide?" Maya asked. "The Alliance will send peacekeepers to help stabilize the Kresh homeworld," Brighttail answered, "on the condition that they accept the Alliance's principles, the protection of civilians, respect for all sentient life, and a commitment to using force for justice rather than conquest." Maya smiled. If they refused, they would face the civil war alone. Shimmer of the Dawn had simply said, "The Alliance does not impose its values on others, but it also does not aid those who refuse to abandon ways that cause suffering." As night fell on the Varathi homeworld, Maya took part in the traditional ceremony marking the end of each day at the Academy. Students and faculty from dozens of species gathered in the main assembly hall, designed to accommodate the needs of all Alliance member states. The ceremony always began the same way, a memorial song sung in the Verasi language, translated for all to understand. The song told the story of a small human child lost in an alien forest, and 6 crystal-furred creatures determined to reach out to the stranger. But tonight something special happened. As the song drew to a close, Shadow of Sorrow stepped forward to add a new verse. It was his first time joining the morning song in over a year. His voice, now clear and bright, had shifted from the dark tones he had used as an agent of hegemony, and he sang of redemption and homecoming. He sang that even those who are lost can find their way home if they remember the simple truth where it all began, that protecting others is the highest calling of any sentient being. When the ceremony was over, Maya once again stood at the observation deck where so many pivotal moments had unfolded. This time, Brighttail wasn't the only one joining her. Young representatives from over 30 species were also there. "Do you think we've really changed anything?" asked Tatara, a young Altari rustling the silvery leaves with curiosity. The galaxy was still filled with conflict and suffering. Maya looked up at the stars and saw alliance ships patrolling trade routes and protecting merchant ships from pirates, diplomatic missions working to resolve disputes that once threatened war, and refugee ships ferrying survivors from oppressed planets to new homes in Alliance space. I think Maya was careful to say that we had proven that change was possible. We had shown that there were alternatives to the old ways. It's up to the rest of the Lagi to follow our example. Brighttail's fur turned the warm gold and pink of familial love as he looked around at the assembled young creatures. But we also created something that cannot be destroyed, he added. We created a generation that knew different species could live as family. Whatever challenges they faced, they would face them with that knowledge. As the young ambassadors dispersed to their quarters, Maya remained on the observation deck with Brighttail and Shimmer of Dawn by her side. Tomorrow would be her final year at the academy before she could fulfill her duties as a diplomat. Rumors were circulating of a new threat emerging in a distant region of space, a species that had not yet learned the lessons of the Alliance. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Shimmer of the Dawn asked, using the gentle voice that had comforted Maya through so many trying times. Maya thought back to that day in the forest when she was 7 years old, to everything that had happened since then. She thought back to the friends she'd made, the tribes she'd walked alongside, and the conflicts she'd helped resolve. "No one can prepare us for the future," she answered honestly. "But whatever comes, we'll face it together. That's what family does." The gleaming fur of his tail gleamed silver and gold as he spoke his thoughts. "The galaxy is vast," he said, "and filled with beings who have not yet learned that kindness is strength. But every day more species join the Alliance. Every day more children grow up knowing that biological differences do not matter if the heart is pure. The song that began in our forests has spread to every corner of the galaxy." As they gazed up at the starry sky, Maya realized her story had only just begun. The girl saved by the crystal-furred forest dwellers had become a bridge between worlds, but there were countless worlds still in need of a bridge. The Protector Worlds Alliance grew from something born out of simple kindness into the largest peaceful alliance in galactic history, but more importantly, it proved there was an alternative to the cycle of conquest and oppression that had dominated galactic politics for millennia. Hegemony still existed, weakened but not destroyed. There were still pirates and slavers, and races that believed that might was right. But now there was evidence that another path was possible. An example of what could be achieved when the strong chose to protect the weak. A time when different races chose to see each other as family rather than rivals. That night, Maya fell asleep to the sound of Brighttail's gentle breathing and the distant singing of the Varathi forest. But now their songs joined the harmonies of dozens of other species, each adding their voice to the chorus of hope that began when 6 beings decided to help a lost child. The galaxy was still vast and dangerous, filled with conflict and challenges, but it was also filled with friends yet to be met, families to be formed, and children of all species, who would grow up knowing that the universe is a place where compassion triumphs over cruelty. It all started small, but with a frightened little human girl fleeing into the forest, and the beings who found her chose love over fear. The Protective Worlds Alliance grew, one act of kindness at a time, proving that small acts can change the fate of an entire civilization. Maya Chen and Brighttail became symbols of change, but they knew that was only the beginning. True heroes are all those who choose to help instead of harm, to protect instead of exploit, and to build bridges instead of walls. They were the ones who carried the message of alliance to every corner of the galaxy, world by world, until children of every species could grow up safe and loved. That was the true legacy of the Guardian Tribe Declaration. This is proof not only of Varasi's defensive power, but that defense itself can be a form of strength no weapon can match.